What's up out there? Welcome back to some more RuneScape 3, and today I want to talk about this Steam review that's been making its way through the social sites. I saw this on Reddit, and then I saw at least one YouTube video about it, and I thought I'd weigh in with my thoughts on it. So first of all, this is a very well written review. I love seeing stuff like this because when I'm looking at a game, I like to see what people liked and didn't like, and even though this is a negative review, this tells you what you're getting into and what that person felt about it. It's a very authentic review. And I love stuff. I love reading these because this gives me an idea of what, I might look at this and say, well, this isn't that big a deal. And then I dive into it. Um, this basically sparked a conversation about the tutorial section of the game and the early game and things like that, and how well the mechanics are described and the skills and all that. And my takeaway from this post was not that we needed to revamp the early game. My takeaway was that this person looked at this and said, it's just not going to be a game for them. Like, you can read the last couple of sentences. It basically says, as a casual player, I don't have the time required to completely immerse myself in such detailed gameplay, and for this reason, I am unable to recommend it. So it's not that you're going to win them over with a tutorial. It's that they looked at the game and they said, even whether good, bad, or indifferent, they just don't have the time or the energy to put into this. And that's fair. That's a very fair assessment of, especially this game. It's kind of grindy and all that. But my point with this is that I don't think you're ever going to change certain people's minds. I mean, they're either going to flat out say, no, I'm not interested, or they're going to look at it and say, yeah, it's too much work, I'm not interested. So there's that side of the spectrum. Then there's the easy side of the spectrum that looked at it and said, yeah, that's exactly my game, or kind of where I'm at, or where I was at with it. Like, I'd heard about RuneScape for many years. And when I was looking for an MMO here recently, I looked at some various games, and I already played this, I already did that. I looked at this and didn't, this particular game, because of the way Melvaridle came from it, Melvaridle basically sprung from this, and people kept recommending it to me. I took a long look at this and I said, this is the game that I want to play. And I even compared it to old school RuneScape, and I said, RS3 is the one that I want for specific reasons. I actually want to play this game. I'll get to old school at some point, but this game looks like Final Fantasy to me. It gives me a modern experience with the older style of game, if that makes sense. So I was actually looking for this experience. So you've got somebody that tried it and didn't like it, and then you've got somebody that tried it and said, no matter what, I'm going to keep going forward. What you're looking for is the people in between. And there is, like I said, there's going to be an element of people that don't want this game at all, and then there's going to be an element that will just do whatever because they don't care, they enjoy the game. They're going to go out to the wiki pages and look up YouTube videos and, read as much and just dive into it. What you're after is the middle part. And I think that's what we're really talking about, is that middle section of people. Now, there's a lot of things that I think could be done to improve the experience with RuneScape, especially the early part of it. There's a lot of struggles that I ran into that I think were unnecessary. So I have some thoughts on this. So first and foremost, like I said, you're not going to be able to retain everybody. And even the greatest tutorial section is not going to retain somebody that's just not interested in the game. So there is that. What I think the new player experience should do is it should represent the overall game. Like this person's review says, they didn't want to get stuck mining and smithing and stuff like that. And that's going to be a large chunk of the game. You're not going to be just fighting stuff all the time. There's a lot of non-combat stuff you're going to have to work on too. I would presume you're going to have to do a lot of non-combat stuff to get to some of the combat stuff, probably through questing and stuff like that. There's going to be quest requirements that you have to meet this goal or whatever. So you need to represent the overall game. I would also want to celebrate the history and lore. As I've gotten into this game, this is a 20-year-old game, roughly, somewhere in that neighborhood. And there's a deep history, a deep lore to it, whether it's the in-game story or the people that play the game. There's a lot of fascinating things that have happened over the years, whether it's story content or, people getting kicked out for whatever reason or whatever controversy, whatever wild thing happened. There's a lot of history and lore there that should, you should celebrate that in the new player experience to bring people in and recognize, show them that this is an older game, that it's been around for a while, and that a lot of people have loved it for whatever reason. Find those reasons and incorporate that. You should absolutely include questing into this. I would not try to teach the entire game at one time. That's a big mistake. And anything that I suggest, I want to see in the game. I know there's a wiki button at the bottom you can hit, and I know there's a wiki out there, and I know there's great YouTube content. There's a lot of, you've got an open forum on Reddit, and that's all fantastic, but it's not in the game. And if I'm running into a problem, I want to look in the game for the solution first. I don't want to be driven out somewhere else. And I think that's a key. And then the other thing is, I think once you get done with the tutorial, you shouldn't just be dumped out into an area and say, oh, go have fun. You should end up with a small list of suggested activities, whether it's the shown how to use the achievement thing, whether it's you're shown how to use the quest log, however you do it. I would have some suggested activities that somebody could go do. Here, this would be cool. Try this out. Here, go try that out. Rather than quest markers that say, go talk to this Slayer guy and then forget about it, because once you finish his task, you're going to be going over to wood cutting guy or something like that. Some of that kind of got, I didn't really care about that. You're kind of dumped out and then left on your own. So I have basically 4 or 5 different thoughts on this, solutions, if you want to call it that. And they range from the very beginning of the game all the way up to kind of mid-game. I feel like I'm sort of in the mid realm, maybe early mid-game or mid-game, something like that. So from my standpoint, there's a lot of things that I've had to just go figure out, well, what's this? Why am I getting messages for that? Why is this popping up? And a lot of it doesn't make sense to me. So I have to go figure out what I'm trying to find. If it's something like the area loot option is a great example. I didn't know what I was looking for. And I had to actually ask somebody on one of my videos and say, hey, can you guys tell me what this is? And I had some great replies, but as a content creator, I had that avenue, you know what I mean? As general person that picks the game up and starts playing, they're not going to know what that's called. And it's not like loot, it's not bound by default. And there's some issues there. There needs to be things that, just minor little stuff like that. And I have answers for some of these problems, or potential answers. So first and foremost, I would have a starting quest line, and I would take the tutorial island and either make it optional for, say, alt characters. If you've been through the game already and you don't feel like doing this whole big quest thing that I'm about to explain, then leave tutorial island in there or let people skip it or whatever, however that works. I would not necessarily kill off tutorial island, but I would like to see a starting quest line. And the example that I give, the easy example, because it just paints the picture, is that you're going to throw a big party. Like you go up and you have a quest giver that says, hey, the king has won some grand victory or something, and we're going to have 100 guests over, or whatever. However you set the story up, this is my example because you can incorporate a lot of skills very quickly and very easily. So you're going to have 100 guests. You're going to have to cook food for them. So you're going to have to go chop trees and gather wood for cook fires and stuff like that. You're going to have to gather meat from chickens and cows and whatever, go hunting for rabbits or birds, gather some fish, pull some farming into that somehow, low-level crafting for pots, and then cooking. So you can incorporate a wide range of skills, some hunting and all kinds of different stuff, the cooking and the fishing and fire making and whatever all else you want into just that section. Like you've hit a whole bunch of quests. I would not make it where you go gather one tree log and come back. Make it something to where people have to fill up their inventory and dump it multiple times, and direct them to the bank slot. Because I think one of this person's comments was that they didn't know what to do with their inventory. Direct them to the bank, how to unload everything into it, and then go off and tell them, hey, you need to unload your inventory so you can haul more at one time. You've got 50 or 100 guests to feed, whatever the number is. Make them cycle through and do things multiple times. Then you could further that out and say, hey, we're going to offer some gifts for all the guests. Or maybe we need to make chairs. So now you can incorporate construction in. You can incorporate mining and smithing or mining and crafting or whatever for jewelry and stuff like that. I mean, there's just so many different ways of incorporating the various skills and just do some basic skills. You don't necessarily have to go into divination or anything like that or prayer or whatever. Just hit up a lot of the basic skills and make some repetitive stuff that's not a total grind, but maybe dumps the player out at level 5 or 10 or something like that of each of those skills. And it's just a nice base to explain the game and show them what they're getting into, number one, and make it repetitive enough to where they learn what they're supposed to do. And then they can kind of start piecing things together. And then, like I said, once this whole quest line gets done, you can exit them out of the quest line and say, here's a list of suggested stuff that we think you could go do. Access this with this button, access this with this button, press H or whatever to engage this help screen and check off these items or something like that. Just something that guides them along, gives them some repetitive actions to show them what the game is, and then exits them gently out the other side instead of just dumping them off at a lodestone and saying, here you go, have fun, figure it out yourself. I think that's, in my mind, that's a good way of doing it because you're giving a nice rounded experience, and it doesn't have to take long, 5-10 hours, something like that. I know that's a decent chunk, but if you're going to do maybe even not that long, I don't know how long it takes to gather a lot of this stuff. I haven't timed any of it. Maybe it only takes a couple hours. I don't know. I'm not the one crafting the experience. I'm just relaying like what I think would be a good experience. So the second thing that I would do, oh, and I forgot, before I forget about it, you could cap that off with a big boss fight. Like you're in the middle of the party or whatever, and something comes in and attacks it, and now you got to fend it off. And now you're getting some of the late game content, but that's just a small early version or something. You know what I mean? Like there's ways of incorporating all that into this quest line that we're talking about. But the second thing that I would do is something that Escape from Tarkov does, which is a Sherpa or mentoring type system. And what I see this as is a place like you could just pop up a box in chat or something, and you can say Sherpa slash Sherpa or whatever. What is blah blah blah? You're just asking a question. How do I pick up loot off the ground? Oh, you just go to the area loot and assign this key. It's in this menu. Scroll to the bottom. There it is. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, or even up to somebody that gives a 30-minute chunk of their time, whether it's somebody from JagX or whether it's just some random people that volunteer that are late game players that come in and help out the new players. They could join their session and co-op for a little bit and say, here's what you do for this, and let me show you that. And, you know, those kind of things. I would love to see some kind of Sherpa or mentoring system in the game where, again, it's in the game. Like you can go on Reddit and ask a question, but this is more, I can ask a question right here and get an answer. Maybe there is something like that and I just don't know about it. I'm not necessarily worried about it for me. I don't really care about the Sherpa stuff, but from what I've seen from Tarkov, it's a very valuable thing and a lot of people enjoy it because they learn a lot and they'll go with somebody to do a raid and they have somebody to talk to while they're doing their item and learning from them. So I think it's valuable, maybe not necessarily for me personally, but I think it would be valuable for a lot of people. And then from that, one of my big criticisms is finding monsters. Like if I get a Slayer task, they tell you go kill blah, blah. If you continue the conversation with the Slayer master, he will tell you where to go find the creatures, but he tells you one time. And if you come back, he just says you're not finished yet and you can't re-engage that conversation. So I would love to see a monster manual in this game and not just here's the monster and there's where they're found, but maybe include things like what common drops they have. So if I'm looking for a particular item, maybe all creatures drop all the same things. I don't know. But if I'm looking for something like, some summoning item or something like that, or an herb or whatever, maybe I can tell where those are and go find them. Same thing with like rare drops. Maybe put question marks on them if they have a rare item. Again, I'm not really sure what all's in combat yet, so maybe I'm talking a little bit out of my ass here, but have something with, say, the rare drops. Maybe that creature drops something and have boxes with like question marks until you actually get that drop. And then so then if its creatures has something worth going to get, or if it's just kind of a trash mob. Because there are times that I'd like to go kill something and put their weaknesses. There's times that, like when we had this double XP weekend, I wanted to go kill some creatures, but I wasn't necessarily sure what was in my combat level, where they were at, or maybe what would be the best training method for the melee style that I was using. All of that would be found in this monster manual. I mean, it would just be some information that's there. Yes, I know you can go to the wiki page, but again, if it's in the game, it's there, and I can just pull it up on the book and say, that's what I want to go fight, and then I can go find it. Just some information that's there for the monsters themselves would be great. And continuing that idea, a resource guide. One of the big things that I struggle with is I get something, I don't know what the hell it is. So I go do divination, and now I've got some random memory strand. Well, I don't know what it is. And you examine it, it doesn't really tell you anything. So I have to go out to the wiki page and go look all this stuff up and then read about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it does. Click here to teleport somewhere. Oh, you're not leveled enough to get into whatever you're supposed to do. And that's kind of a frustrating experience to have to keep dealing with that over and over again until I remember, oh yeah, I can't go do that anymore. And then you find out that, oh, there's this little Gothixian cache thing that's in the bottom of that divination thing. And when you get this message down here in the dialog box, you can go into that and do something. And then they, even putting a splash screen before you go into that cache of here's what the mechanics are. I just got thrown into the thing. I tried figuring it out. And then I had to go to the wiki page while I'm in this Gothixian cache thing trying to play and read on what's all about it. Like, there's nothing in the game that explains any of this. And what I imagine happened, well, all right, let me rephrase that. There's nothing that I found quickly while I was just dumped into it. Maybe there is stuff in there. I don't know. I would imagine that a lot of the things that are in this game were explained very thoroughly in patch notes when the patch was released and when that content came out, but it's not been kept up to date. They've added more content and they've kind of just, I don't want to say ignored, but the other stuff was just, you're assumed to know what it is and how to use it and do whatever. And, I don't know. I think that's, I think there needs to be a little bit of assistance in there. Another problem that I have is, like, I'm trying to find ore or a tree or something like that. Yes, I can go to the wiki page. A lot of times I go try in, like, if you click on the skill, there is a little thing you can expand that on trees or whatever, or a lot of times you can find stuff there. But some of the things don't match what's in there with what's in the wiki page. Like, there might be an additional place that I have access to that the wiki page talks about that the in-game stuff doesn't. So some consistency there and upkeep would be great, but an actual manual that says, I have this, what is it? Or a little better explanation. Or one thing that I struggled with when I got the daily task the first time is leather. I had no concept how to get leather. I assumed that you could go to kill a cow and then go into crafting and make leather, but you couldn't. You have to actually take it over to a tanner or use the little tanner tool belt, workbench thing, whatever. I mean, none of that was like apparent. You know what I mean? And you click on wells, and wells do different things, and you got to have buckets for clay and stuff like that. Like, there's so many little dinky aspects of everything. It'd be nice if there was, again, in the game, that I have clay. What does clay do? And you find all this stuff out, and once you figure it out, it's not that big a deal. But there's so much of that. There is so many little things here and there that you have to piece together. And in my opinion, some kind of resource guide that tells you where to collect things, what they do, what they work with, even some basic information about what that's for. Like, I get stuff and I have no idea what it's for. I've got salvage parts, no clue. I have no idea. You can't go to a forge and melt it down, which is the first thing I presumed. At least I don't think you can. I think I've tried it and it doesn't. So what does that do? Well, is that something I have to save for later? I don't know. Again, something in here that explains some of that stuff would be nice. And I'm not looking for answers at the moment. I'm telling you the problems that I ran into and the things that I'm trying to figure out as I'm playing the game. Do I kick this out of my inventory? Do I take it back and store it in the bank? Do I just not care about it? I don't know. Some kind of guide that says where to find stuff, what the value of it is. Things that help would be great. And that's why I'm saying like a monster manual or a resource guide, those would be great. And those would help people for a very long time because you're going to encounter new creatures you need to fight. Maybe you're looking for a specific thing. Maybe you're looking where to grind some item out or something like that, like a charm or whatever. It'd be nice to have that stuff sitting in the game where I could just pull up a book like the Slayer Task Guide or the we have the archaeology guide, but it tells you what you get. It doesn't necessarily tell you where to find everything. So things that tell you where this stuff is and what they're for and things like that would be great. So I'm not going to harp on that anymore. It's probably more than enough there, but those are some of the things that I'd really like to see. And then one of the things that I think this one is kind of piggybacking off of some of the conversation we've already had is what I would call an opportunity marker. I know there's a bit of text that pops up at the bottom of the screen that says, hey, there's an event in the wilderness, or there's I don't know, a crevasse or whatever it is. There's a bunch of crap that pops up in the bottom. I don't know what any of that means. None of it means anything to me, and I'm probably too low of a level to go deal with any of the stuff that's in there. So a lot of it I just ignore, and it just kind of passes by and scrolls up. What I would love to see is something that comes up and says, like a little, like we get the box with the keys that pops up every once in a while and says, hey, you've got treasure hunter keys. It'd be cool if there was something that says there is an opportunity that you can do right here. Do you want to try this opportunity? And the second you click it and do that opportunity, the box goes away and you never see it again. But it pops up and highlights, hey, we're trying to tell you down here in the corner, there's this Gathixian cache thing that's down in this divination hole. If you right click on that and go into it, it's going to present a mini game. Here's the information on the mini game. It's timed. You got to do this, this, and this. You can move things like that would go a long way. Stuff like the wilderness stuff or whatever. Hey, there's a meteor thing nearby. I just ran by a meteor one day. Don't know where it came from. Don't know how to get it. I know there's a quest or something. And I know there's stuff in the game to go figure some of this out. I just haven't got there yet. Moreover, I don't know if I'm of the level to do some of this stuff. And like this Gathixian cache thing, it just popped up on the bottom and I kept seeing it popping up down there in the chat log. I was like, all right, what is this? And I go look it up and I'm like, oh, hey, that's right here where I'm doing divination training right now. So I right clicked and I said, hey, cool, I can go into that. And I went in. Also adjusting the divination stuff, like a lot of that's just not really explained. If it is, maybe there's a help dialogue that I didn't miss. And I don't really like following a lot of the help dialogues. I don't necessarily want things that hold your hand, and I don't want quest markers going everywhere saying there's all this stuff. But it'd be nice if you had something that would just pop up and say, hey, you haven't done this yet. You're of the ability to do this. You've got the right level for it. It's a thing in your area. This is the first time you've done this. We're going to tell you about it. Don't tell me about it 50 times later, but just tell me the first time. If I say, remind me later, remind me later. If I say, okay, let's go do it, and you explain it. If I say, no, I don't care, then that's on me. But at least offer some things that show what I'm calling opportunity markers that say, hey, there's something you could do that we're trying to tell you about that you're not catching on to. The other thing that I would also call out is the stuff like with the premium membership. When you log in, if you don't pay attention to that dialog box, a lot of things come zipping by. It'd be cool if they flashed or put numbers or something. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't on the membership stuff. And you miss things and whatever. So I think it'd be kind of cool to highlight more things that you need to keep an eye on and take part in or whatever, or offer the opportunity to. So anyway, that's kind of my rant about the whole thing. That's the changes that I would personally make if I had the power. And I don't know how much all this takes. Like, it's a lot of work. And keeping it up, designing it's one thing, then you got to maintain it and all that. So it kind of goes out from there. But those are my ideas based on this whole conversation of what the early game and what could help other people along. So that will do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.